All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely dismantle a classic corporate archetype, the loud, charismatic leader. You know the one. For decades, the industry has basically sold us this single image of leadership, the person who fills the room, sucks up all the oxygen, and speaks the loudest. Well, we're breaking that myth today using an incredible 25-year case study, the career of Lionel Messi. We're going to look at a journey that started at age 13 on the Mediterranean coast and compounded into literally the greatest sporting legacy of our generation. And the crazy part? It was built entirely on restraint, mastery, and quiet greatness.
So the loudest person in the room is usually not the best leader in it. It's a provocative thought, right? And it directly challenges that traditional leadership canon you'll find sitting in every single airport bookstore. The data just doesn't back up the loud archetype. When you actually look at the longest careers at the absolute top of any high-pressure field, the pattern isn't charisma, it's consistency. It's absolute silence under pressure.
Think about the number 25 for a second. That's a quarter century of being filmed, measured, and analyzed frame by frame. From this extreme level of sustained excellence, we can extract a 10-principle operating system, a system that's based on compounding daily habits and structural literacy, rather than just trying to be the most vocal person on the pitch.
Here is our roadmap for This Explainer. First, we'll tackle the myth of charisma. Then, we'll break down what happens when no one watches, when the team watches, and when the world watches. And finally, we'll wrap up with the long arc test.
Okay, Section 1, the myth of charisma, and why the canon is wrong. Basically, the data points to silence under pressure rather than vocal dominance as the true indicator of long-term elite performance. True credibility is built through output, not personal narrative.
Moving right along to Section 2, when no one watches, mastering the invisible foundation. This is absolutely crucial because this is where the ceiling of your entire career is actually determined.
We really need to replace a useless cliché here with a structural reality. Practice makes perfect is just, something you put on a break room poster. The reality is that the basics must be drilled until they leave your conscious brain entirely. Think of a 13-year-old at the La Masia Academy taking identical touches every single day. By the time that player is 17, scanning the field isn't a skill anymore, it's literally wired into his nervous system.
Now, how does this actually translate to your Monday morning? Well, in football, repetitive passing drills under pressure are exactly like a manager running a crisp, clean 30-minute meeting. The physical body shape on receiving the ball. That translates to writing a clear, concise weekly memo. When you get promoted, you cannot abandon these entry-level basics. They aren't beneath you. They are the actual operating system that your entire career runs on.
You've definitely heard the advice to just be humble and let your work speak for itself. Well, here's the problem with that. Work sitting in a private folder doesn't speak. Instead of just being quietly humble, you need to produce durable artifacts. I'm talking about decision logs, clear roadmaps, crisp postmortems. These artifacts travel. They speak for you in rooms you aren't in, and they compound your credibility way faster than self-promotion ever could.
So what are 3 basics in your current role that you used to do really well but have quietly let slip since your last promotion? Take a second and really reflect on that. It matters immensely, because neglecting these foundational basics creates a silent, downward compounding effect in your career.
All right, Section 3, when the team watches, navigating the middle arc. Let's look at how this builds when your peers and your direct reports are watching your every move.
The big mindset shift here is that choosing the team's win isn't about some kind of moral selflessness. It's actually about system design. If a superstar waves off a free kick in a World Cup final so a teammate can take it, that's not just a nice gesture. It proves you're so predictable and reliable at the margin that your team can confidently build an entire system around you.
And then there's loyalty. Treating loyalty as an unshakable moral identity is actually a massive trap. If you're just playing the part of the loyal employee, you're going to stick around even when the system turns toxic. Loyalty is a long-term play with explicit conditions. We saw this perfectly in 2020 with Messi's infamous Burofax exit attempt. The structural terms of his contract had shifted, and he treated the situation strategically, not emotionally.
Here's a crucial question for you. What does your team currently predict you will choose when the team's result and your personal result diverge? If your team predicts you're going to grab the credit just to protect your own review cycle, your leadership system is already broken. The reputational asset you build by predictably choosing the team is pretty much the only thing that survives reorganizations and new managers.
That brings us to Section 4, when the world watches, surviving and reinventing. We are now at the absolute highest stakes phase, operating when your entire industry is scrutinizing you.
When a massive system wants to break you, like, say, the very public financial collapse of FC Barcelona that forced an exit after 2 decades, don't just absorb it personally. Internal resilience is great, for sure, but external structural literacy is what actually saves you. You have to map the org chart, learn the unwritten rules, identify your levers, and navigate your exit cleanly without burning the whole institution to the ground.
This brings up a masterclass in career evolution. You have to reinvent yourself before you actually have to. Back in 2009, under Pep Guardiola, we saw radical shifts to the false 9 position. And the brilliant part? That reinvention happened at the exact moment the previous role was working perfectly. You have to leverage your peak moments to transition into new roles preemptively, rather than just waiting for the market to force your hand.
Translating this to your own career, as you lose your initial explosive speed, basically moving past being a high-output individual contributor, you must shift into becoming a net positive force multiplier. You drop deeper, you open spaces, and you actively remove friction so the rest of your team can score. Your personal stats might drop a bit, but the whole system's output rises.
But, what happens when you lose? Following a crushing public defeat, do not disappear. After that devastating World Cup final loss in 2014, there was no unannounced sabbatical. The response was a strict re-entry protocol. Stay physically and emotionally visible, acknowledge the cost structurally, and just continue doing the work. Your team needs to see you handle the failure.
So what is the expiration date of your current role? Seriously ask yourself this today. Every role expires, usually in about 3 to 5 years. You have to read the signals before the system does, because forced reinventions are always way more expensive, highly stressful, and they leave you with far fewer options.
Finally, Section 5, the long arc test, scoring your leadership system. We are going to make this entire framework deeply actionable with a quick diagnostic tool.
Let's make this actionable. Be completely honest with yourself and score each of the 10 principles we've discussed from 0 to 5. This is going to show you exactly where your career compounding has the highest leverage right now. Score below 20? Go back and rebuild your unobserved foundations. Sitting in the middle between 20 and 35? Find your mid-arc laggard principles. Above 35? Identify your lowest score and treat fixing it as a deliberate, one-year project.
Ultimately, quiet greatness is the capacity to do hard things for a very long time without performing for the room. Leaving behind that loud archetype gives you the durable capacity to let your compounding work speak for itself across a very long arc. True leadership is doing the simple hard things consistently, especially when the spotlight is completely turned off.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If your team could observe one full, unobserved week of your work, what would they conclude? Close the gap between your public and your private standards, because trust me, the room will eventually notice. If your unobserved hours match your observed standards, you are building an asset that no amount of charisma can ever fake. The arc is long, the work is the work, and the results will speak for themselves. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.